I'm just gonna do a little intro for the sim. Then you can. Good day, everyone. We would like to welcome you to the United States Military Veterans Homebuyer Seminar. My name is Leon Mallet, and I am co-hosting this event with Carlos Bartel of Keller Williams and Dominic Licata of Lux Lending. This seminar is set up to be able to inform veterans on the process of being able to utilize their VA loan to make a home purchase. We have a lot of great information and speakers who are slated to speak. It's going to go through the full aspect of the process from beginning to end in terms of what you need to do to be able to make a home purchase and complete it. Again, like I said, we have a great slate of speakers with a lot of great information to come. And we'd like to thank everybody who was here as well as those online. And ultimately, our information will be available. There is going to be a lot of information here, so if you do have any questions, feel free to make sure you reach out to any of us once we are done after the seminar, and we're always available for any questions that you have. So we are going to start off with the realtor aspect of this, who's going to discuss what is the actual responsibility of a buyer's agent during the process. So we will start off with welcoming Mr. Carlos Bartel of Keller Williams.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Happy Saturday. And I'm here to educate everyone on the home buying process and the benefits of veteran loans. Now, benefits of ownership for a veteran. There's no money down. So as far as your down payment, unlike traditional, conventional and FHA loans, veterans have the advantage of not having to put any money down towards their down payment. So that's definitely a benefit. You're saving money there. The second thing is that there's no PMI, which is private mortgage insurance. Pretty much, which can save you a few $100s a month. That's pretty much money that's interest, and lenders have a tendency of, so when you don't put 20% down towards your down payment, lenders have a tendency of pretty much charging you, I guess, for insurance for them giving you a loan. So pretty much PMI only benefits the lender, so it's good to not have PMI. So that's one good advantage of being a veteran with a home loan. Okay, cool. Now, there are flexible credit requirements. Generally, there are minimum requirements, and the lender's gonna get into that, but it's pretty much flexible. So unlike conventional FHA, the requirements aren't quite the same. So that's another benefit for veterans. And also, loans are assumable. So this is one of my favorites. You're actually able to give a loan, so a family or a friend can actually assume that loan. So for example, you had no down payment, and you had minimal closing costs. If a family or a friend needs to, they can assume that loan. Obviously, they have to meet certain requirements, but they can assume that loan. And then once that family or friend does assume that loan, you can go on and use your VA loan again. So that's another benefit of having a VA loan. It's assumable, and it's a good way to build generational wealth and pass things on to family members. And the closing cost is limited. Again, I'm not gonna really get too much into that. That's more of a lender thing. So when he comes up here, he's gonna talk about it, but there's pretty much limited closing costs. So I'm gonna walk you over the buying process. You have a question? Yeah. Well, no, that's for the lender to more so expound on, so that's why I didn't really get into too much detail. Obviously, the lender has to look at your profile and kind of determine, what exactly that is. But again, like I said, traditionally, it's flexible. It's not like a conventional FHA loan. Yep. Where am I? Okay, now the fun part, the home buying process. I'm a realtor. This is what I love to do, and I get really excited when it comes to actually helping people find their home. So what I like to do is initially give a buyer's consultation. That's very important because I can tell you what to expect from me as a realtor, and I can also know what to expect from you as a buyer. One of my biggest things is honesty. I'm gonna be very honest to all of my clients, and I expect my clients to be honest to me. So that way, we're not wasting each other's time, and I can kind of see what your needs, and I can more so cater to whatever it is that you're looking for. So we have the initial consultation. Once we have the initial consultation and you decide to use me as a realtor, then we go through the pre-approval process. I connect you with my lending partner, and he looks at your credit profile and looks at your income, and he pre-approves you for a certain amount. So once you get that pre-approval, now we don't go out looking for properties, right? Because you may see a home that's worth, I don't know, $1 million. You want to go look at that, but you only pre-approved for 200 grand. Or on the flip side, you may be looking at homes that's 200 grand and you pre-approve for 450,000. So it's always important to get a pre-approval first. The other point that I'm gonna get into is after the pre-approval, we start looking. Once we find our home, we put in an offer. So once we put this offer in, we wait for the offer to get accepted. So say in the perfect world, the offer does get accepted. Then at that point, you have 48 hours to leave an earnest money deposit. So pretty much that's just a down payment. It's typically 1% of the actual value of that property. And that's just showing the seller that you're serious about this property and you really want to buy this property. So you're pretty much using that as a down payment to take the market off the house. So, take the house off the market. So after your inspection, after your EMD, within that week, I like to go within that week, we have an inspection. What the inspector does is he comes in, he shows you everything that's ugly with the property. He's not there to tell you how beautiful the cabinets are. He's not there to tell you how nice the bathroom and the flooring is. His job is to nitpick and find any and everything that's ugly with the property. Now, with that being said, you don't want to run away from the property because he points out a few things. The major thing is, coming to roofing and foundation. Obviously, that's kind of a major issue. But aside from that, electrical not working in certain parts of the house or a fixture's cracked or something like that, none of that's really major. But it's important to know. And some of these things that you're going to find in these properties is something that you may have to address later on down the line. So it may not be something that you have to address right now, but you might have to address it later on down the line. I tell people, no home is perfect. If a house were to be built yesterday, you have an inspection today, an inspector more than likely is going to find something wrong with that property. So, like I say, during the inspection period, we're looking for more so major things with the property. So after the inspection, we have an appraisal. And what that is the lender comes out, checks the value of the property, and makes sure that they're lending you the money, make sure that the house is worth what they're giving you. If the house isn't worth what they're giving you, then they won't lend you the money. And at that point, you would have to negotiate with the seller. For example, you go into a purchase for $200,000 and the appraisal come back to $150,000. Now at that point, you have to either agree on the $150,000 because the lender is only going to lend you up to $150,000, or you have to make up, or you can meet in the middle, or you may have to come out of your pocket to make up the difference, which most people don't do. So at that point, either the seller can sell you the property for the $150,000, or you guys can come up with whatever terms you agree upon to obtain the property. Now, let me rewind. So after the inspection, what happens is if you deem something very major with the inspection, what you can do is ask the seller to address it, or B, ask for closing costs and concessions, closing credits or concessions. And what that is the seller with the VA loan can give you up to 60% towards your closing costs. So hypothetically speaking, if this home is $200,000, it's no money down. Say your closing cost is, I don't know, 12 grand, just for the sake of throwing numbers out there. They could help towards that closing cost. So essentially, you don't really have to come out of much, very little. So that's definitely a benefit. What else? Okay, so after your inspection and if you and the seller agree on a common ground, then you move on to the appraisal. But if you and the seller can't agree on that, you can get your earnest money deposit back, which was I don't know if it's $200,000, $2K. You get that back, and you can go, you withdraw your offer, and then you go start looking for the next property. And the same thing with the appraisal. If you agree for a purchase of $200,000 and the home doesn't appraise, you can withdraw your offer and then get your money back and look for the next property. But in a perfect world, if everything goes through, you just, at that point, went on to clear to close, and then you have the final closing. You're in your new home. What else was I gonna cover? And I mean, that's pretty much it. That's the home buying process in a nutshell. I encourage everyone, if you can, if you're able, to put yourself in position for home ownership. It's not, what people think it is. The first thing someone thinks is, I gotta have a bunch of money, or one of the common myths is, I gotta have 20% down. And that's not necessarily the case, especially if you're a veteran. Like I say, 0 down, minimal closing costs. So now is pretty much the time to buy. So, any questions? Yes, sir. It varies. I've taken.
Hold on just a second. Can you repeat the question, please?
Oh, okay.
Yes, sir. So I was wondering about how many homes your clients go look at before they find the right house on average?
My last deal was the first home that they seen. They was ready, like put the offer in and it got accepted, it was done. That's my first time that ever happened. Yeah, it was easy for me, easy for them. It was like perfect. So we're getting ready to close hopefully the next week or so. But I've had 15 houses, 20 houses. It just varies, depends on what's out there, what the client is looking for, So I love actually, like, one of my favorite things one of my favorite parts of being a realtor is actually going on a home buying journey. Like, I love going and looking at different properties and seeing how a lot of sellers were when they were, creating these houses and building them. So, yeah, so I can go and look at houses all day, every day. I enjoy doing that. I love helping people. I love being of service, and I love adding value to people. I'm not motivated by money. Money is a byproduct. I generally love helping people. I had a client, it's a young girl, 23 years old. She really inspired me. I serviced her, but at the same time, I was her cheerleader. She was 22 years old. She called in. She wanted to rent a property. And she gave me, we talked a little bit, and I said, you may actually be able to buy a property. And she's like, well, I really want to buy a property, but I don't really know much about it. And my dad doesn't support me. He wants me to just move with him and wait till I get a husband. And my mom just is not supporting it at all. And I wish I had really known that, and I wish I had done that at that particular time. So that motivated me to really, not for her to be disobedient to her parents, but just to show her parents and educate her parents that, home ownership is not bad at a young age. And your child is building legacy and building equity and generational wealth at an early age. So to make a long story short, we ended up closing on a 2-bedroom property. It was her first property. It was only 70 grand. When I say I was happy, that was my most fun and just happiest moment, just being able to help her. Because it wasn't necessarily, like I say, it wasn't about the money. Like, yes, I like a commission, but like I say, it's a byproduct. I was able to help somebody. So her plan is to be there for 5 years, and as her income grows, you know, if she gets married or find a husband, they're gonna use that property as leverage and for another property, and she's gonna cash flow that property. So if she was to cash flow that property right now, she'd be getting like maybe $500 a month. So things like that, you know, that's my why, and that's what's important to me. So, yeah. Any more questions?
Yeah, so when it comes to the inspection, does that include like things that you can't see, like plumbing or trees or roofs?
Yeah,
and things like that?
yep. So there's one particular, it's called a sewer scope. They run now this is more of an inspector thing, but they run a line down there and have a camera, and they look at to see if your pipes is collapsed or, you know, kind of give you an idea. Because one thing you don't want is to buy a home, and then next thing you know, I forget what you call it, but there's a collapse in the line, and now you're spending 8, 9, 10 grand after you close the home. You may be out of funds because you use a lot of funds to actually obtain a property. So that's why inspection is very, very important, because you can address all these things up front. And one thing that I always tell my clients, especially my first-time home buyers, is to get a warranty. So in case something goes wrong, you know, you just might have to pay minimal costs, you know, but aside from that, because a lot of times, like even in VA, you still have closing costs. But who wants to spend a bunch of money? So if you have a warranty, and I'd rather pay $40, $50, $60, $70, $80 a month to be protected than having to spend $5,000 and $6,000 when something goes out. So, yeah. Is there any more questions?
Yeah, you had obviously mentioned one of the benefits being no down payment.
Yeah.
But obviously there are some out-of-pocket costs that they're going to have to cover as far as the EMD,
Yeah.
Appraisal, and, you know, the inspection.
Yeah.
But with that being said, there are obviously other costs that come with the transaction.
Yeah.
Can you talk about how they potentially can utilize concessions? Because I don't think a lot of people know what concessions are.
Yes.
And how that could be utilized to benefit them with the process.
That's a great question. So, so when you first put an offer in and it get accepted, you're looking at a few grand within a 7 to 14-day period. Your EMD, an inspection may be, depending on the size of the house, and I don't want to get into price, it can be anywhere from $300 to $500, if not more, for the inspection. So let's just use a $200,000 home. It's easy. $2,000 is your EMD, another $500 for your inspection, and another $500 for your appraisal. You want to do all this within 14 days. And the reason why you want to do this within 14 days is because you want your offer to be attractive. You don't want to put in an offer and then say, hey, I can't get an inspection for 14 days. Why would they choose you when they can choose someone else who's willing to do an inspection within 5 or 6 days? So that's why I always encourage my buyers to do an inspection within 7 days. So pretty much, so you're looking at, once you put an offer in and it's accepted, you're looking at about $3 grand right there. Now, to the closing costs and the concession part, even though it's zeroed down, if it's a competitive market, hypothetically speaking, what you could do is, if the seller doesn't, and it's competitive, you can go over asking to get that deal. And if you need some money for your closing costs, you can say, I don't know, this is quick math, if it's $200,000, you can offer $212 and then go at 5% and get like $10,000 towards your closing costs. So the seller is still getting the house, selling a home for $200,000, but the seller is bringing $10,000 to the closing table to help you get the home, and at the same time, they're still getting what they want for $200,000. So, does that answer your question?
Yes, it does.
Okay. Is there any more questions in terms of concessions? Anything like that? No? Okay.
What would be the best way to people to get in touch with you?
You could, my cell phone number is 313-564-9648. I'm sorry. Yeah, 313-564-9648. My email address is cbartellrealestate@gmail. cbartellrealestate@gmail. You can call me, you can email me. I'm always available. And my philosophy is if you want to see a home, obviously once you're pre-approved, I'll show you a home within 24 hours. So that's my thing. Is there any more questions? No? All right. Thank you guys for having me.
All right, thank you, Mr. Carlos. And as far as the process goes, the best way to think about it is your realtor is going to be your partner side by side. Everybody that we're going to go through today, they're going to have different aspects of the process that they'll go through and be part of. But the only person that's going to be part of every single step is going to be your realtor. So again, make sure you reach out to Carlos. He's going to take great care of you, and he's going to be with you hand in hand through the whole process from beginning to end. Up next, obviously, as Carlos stated, before he can take you shopping, he has to make sure to know what you're actually eligible to buy. That's going to come down to being pre-approved for a mortgage. And ultimately, that's one of the main key factors, if not the key factor, that's going to determine your purchasing power as well as when you're going to be able to actually go out and make a purchase. So coming up next, we have Dominic Licata of Lux Lending. He is a mortgage loan officer as well as a United States Marine Corps veteran who's going to discuss the process of the VA loan, benefits for it, as well as the process. And we are actually streaming live on his channel, Faith, Valor, Growth. And again, thank you for utilizing that platform to let us use it. And he's going to go over the pre-approval process.
It benefits me too, right? Like
Indeed.
It gets the that whole vision of what Faith, Valor, Growth is, right? So I feel like that's such a big part of it, of what we're trying to build and how we're trying to get back to the veteran community, as opposed to just, it's great to teach people how to get into homes, but there's so many other things that, as being a veteran, that we really struggle with when we get out, right? That transition back to the civilian world is difficult. The reason why I started going and working more with the veteran community and created Faith, Valor, Growth was because I was able to create wealth using the VA home loan. So there's a lot of benefits to it. It's probably the best benefit that we get, and just how do you access it? How do you utilize it? What does it mean? But we'll start. I'll let you go.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. And
a lot of great
turn that
information.
off for me. And then if anybody has any questions at that time, you can turn it back on and hand the mic out. So I'm Dominic Licata. I am a loan officer, and I also am a podcaster for Faith, Valor, Growth. My favorite thing to do is to work with the veteran community and find opportunities to really give back, right? I know that I struggled tremendously when I got out of the military. I struggled with self-reflection, self-help, and really didn't know where I was going to take things. I was very successful coming out, but losing that purpose, community, and a drive really made it difficult for me. I do work with my family, with Lux Lending. That is actually my wife's branch, so she is a branch manager for Lux Lending. She's probably a way better loan officer than I am at this point, and I've been doing it for 22 years. So I lean on her for a lot of that support, but I'd like to get out and at least explain some of the specifics. When we get into the details during the loan transaction, more than likely we'll be working with her or a couple other people on our team, just to kind of put that out there. But let's talk about a couple different things. Do I click to move this? Okay, here we go. So what is the VA home loan, right? It is a government-backed loan. I thought initially that the VA was going to give me money in order to purchase a home. I didn't know what that meant, right? You still have to qualify for a home, qualify for it. And what that means is that we're going to review a lot of different facets of your life and how your ability to repay that loan is, right? The good things about the VA home loan, just like Carlos was talking about, is that it is a zero down payment loan. It's the only zero down payment loan out there that is eligible in all areas of the country, right? There are ones that are 100% financing in rural areas, and you can get down payment assistance through an FHA loan, which is another government-backed loan, which has some stipulations and guidelines that allow people that are first-time home buyers or maybe struggling or have bruised or battered credit to get in as long as they've shown the ability to repair those things. Now, I always tell everybody, just because it's a zero down payment loan doesn't necessarily mean that you're not going to bring any money to the table. You're still going to be required to put down your security deposit, and that can come back to you in the form of a check at closing, depending on how the file is structured. So what we look at is, are you able to get seller concessions, which is one of the things that, hey, can you get my water over there? You can get seller concessions. And we were talking about that with Carlos. So that depends specifically on the market. Is this a buyer's market or a seller's market? If it's a buyer's market, then more than likely you're going to be able to negotiate in your contract those seller concessions. You can use those seller concessions to pay for your closing costs and your prepaids. Your prepaids are setting up your escrow account, which covers your taxes and insurance. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I could have walked over there, but I know they said, hey, you got to stay on this box up here. Don't leave. I feel like I'm back in SEER school. Don't leave that box. So we look at those. If it's a buyer's market, then you're probably going to be able to negotiate some concessions into the deal. It depends on how many people are looking to purchase that. We hear multiple offer situations all of the time. And if it's a seller's market, then more than likely we'll figure out a way to structure the deal to keep your closing costs down and make it more affordable for you. There's no PMI or monthly mortgage insurance on this loan. While there is a VA funding fee, and we're going to cover what that VA funding fee is and some of the stipulations in it, that VA funding fee can be waived if you are a veteran receiving disability. But monthly mortgage insurance is probably the biggest scam in the world, right? Lenders charge monthly mortgage insurance if you don't put 20% down to protect themselves in the case of foreclosure or default. That's all it is. So if you stop making your mortgage payments and you go into default or foreclosure, the bank, the lender that you have financed through, goes to the insurance company that they made you pay that insurance for and collects the difference of money that they've lost on it. So it's protection for them. That's all it is, right? There's nothing good about it other than it protects the lender, right? So we talk about where does the money come from? Funds come from investors, right? So depending on who you go to, and I'll tell you, having been in the industry for 22 years, you can always go to Navy Fed or Veterans United in order to get a VA home loan. Nothing wrong with them, but I find that those places are very cookie cutter. If anything is a little outside of the box, it could get a little sticky. The other things is when there's a lot of people purchasing at the same time, so there's limited capacity on the back end, you're tied to a contract that has a specific closing date. You have to close by that date. If you're working with those companies, sometimes they're so busy that you get overlooked or thrown in the shuffle, and you could miss that contract date, inevitably losing the home. So I like to work with somebody who's familiar with the area and has a team, right? We talk about having a title rep, we talk about Carlos and I working together. The reason why we do that is because we understand the dynamic of the VA home loan. Meaning, when I hand off that VA buyer to Carlos and he goes to put that offer in, he's going to present it that this is a veteran who's looking to purchase. Let's help him accomplish the American dream. He gave to our country, let's give back to him. So it's a little bit of a different presentation, and then we're in communication with each other the entire time. If you're working with somebody over at Veterans United or Navy Fed, I mean, I could go down the list, but those are the big ones. There's not that type of relationship, right? They're not going, like, that loan officer and your realtor who's in your community are not going to go out to lunch together. They're not going to collaborate. They're not going to find opportunities and then have somebody who's working the title end on the back end to make sure that we're all meeting our timelines in a sequential order. I like that. It says backed by Valor Growth. It's supposed to be Faith Valor Growth. So Faith Valor Growth, that's, like I said, that's my podcast. There's a huge piece of that where we start to look at those who want to give back to the veteran community that are veterans, purchase a 4-unit property. Well, why do I talk about purchasing a 4-unit property? Well, it's a great way to buy an asset that you can residually receive income from. Most people will have to put at least 15 or 25% down if they're buying a 4-unit property. FHA does have some stipulations where you can do 3.5% down. But they're also a little more difficult to use the rental income. So what are we rolling to next? Yep. So understanding the VA funding fee, we talked about this. The VA funding fee is technically a form of mortgage insurance. Now, it is a one-time fee that is tacked onto the loan, right? So it's a percentage. Typically, like if your loan amount is, we'll just do easy numbers. If your loan amount is $200,000, they're going to tack on a 2%. It's actually like 2.4%, but let's call it 2% for easy numbers fee. So your loan amount would actually be $204,000. That goes back to the VA, and they use that for any time that the loan goes into default, just like regular mortgage insurance. Now, the caveat is if you are disabled at least 10%, you could be exempt from that VA funding fee. That's crucial. Now, there's certain things that we do throughout the process where when we start talking to our veterans for the first time, we ask them, are they currently receiving disability or have they applied for disability? If they haven't, I'm always under the impression that most of us out here have tinnitus. Nothing rings like freedom in my ears. I'll tell you that. That's what I hear every day. But the reason why I encourage people to do that is when we're looking at loan amounts of $400,000, $500,000 at 2.4 or even 3.6%, so you can see where it says how much is it, and it gives you different examples, right? 0% down, 2.15, subsequent use, 3.3, 3.6% I think is like the top one on the chart. And at 3.6%, if you're buying a $500,000 home, you're kicking up over $17,000. Well, if we get that application in for your disability prior to taking application for your home purchase, as you go through the process of receiving your disability and after it's approved, you will then receive that money back. Now, it's done in a couple of different ways. Some lenders will then apply that money back towards the principal balance of the loan, but lately, for whatever reason, I don't know if it's from a servicing standpoint, meaning who you're paying, because that always transfers on the back end. You may close with one person and your loan may get sold several times. What happens is we find that those individuals who've had their loans sold off several times end up getting a check. So more and more, these people are receiving a check back after closing for whatever that amount is. That's awesome, right? If you're going to buy a second home and we get that thing waived at 3.6% for that subsequent use, I mean that was my big. When I purchased my first VA home, I was not receiving disability. I remember I was talking about how I struggled when I got out. So I really didn't even talk about being in the service for the first 10 years. I didn't even talk about VA home loans for the first 10 years. I didn't even really want to do VA home loans. But I realized that after serving, this is our benefit. This is something that we're entitled to. We've earned this. So if somebody wants to try to sell me on something different than a VA home loan when it's the best thing out there, then they're just doing a disservice. And I saw that over and over again. So I thought it was important to teach veterans how to use their VA home loan, and more importantly, how to get the stigma off of the VA home loan. Why? Well, there's a couple things out there with the VA home that people will tell you, right? They think that a veteran is not as qualified for a loan because they're not putting any money down. So if they have multiple offers on the table, they might accept a conventional offer who's putting 20% down. It's not necessarily the case. When we take a profile look at the veteran community, you're usually looking at veterans with an average FICO score about 20 points higher. They make more money. There's other issues that we have in the being a veteran that we all see, right? The veteran homeless population is at 54,000 verified at this point in time. So the funding fee, if we can get it waived for you, we're going to try to do what we can. If it's a process thing for you to get the money back, we're going to walk you through that process with the Faith Valor Growth Foundation. So, Carlos, Carlos was talking about taking you out and getting you pre-qualified before, having you get pre-qualified before you actually go out and you start looking for housing, right? Any good realtor is going to have you do that. Most realtors are not going to jump up. They're going to know it's a waste of time. They want to know what you qualify for a million different reasons. Whether it's, do you have work to do? How soon can you close? What points are you looking for? But more importantly, he wants to find something that's going to fit what your needs are inside of the budget that you're allowed. So we take a look at things like we call it an IPAC framework. It stands for income, property, assets, and credit. Those are the 4 things that go into the qualification. The first thing that we'll do, and you can look at the bottom of the screen, is grab that certificate of eligibility. That certificate of eligibility will show that you are actually approved and able to get a VA home loan. There are people that have served in the military that are not eligible to use their VA benefit. If you had been discharged dishonorably, you're not eligible for it. If you haven't, there's certain timeline requirements, 2 years or 90 days if you're overseas in the time of war, which we've been in a time of war for the last 30 years now. Those things will help you qualify, but the one thing that I typically see more than anything else are veterans who are serving in the National Guard. So veterans that serve in the National Guard and never get activated to active duty are typically confound to, they have to complete their 6 years. Those 6 years, they receive credits for each time. So if somebody is not going to drill on the weekends or missing time consistently, they may not have enough credits after that 6-year mark. So we'd hate to say, oh, well, if you've been in the reserve for 6 years, you're automatically going to qualify. But we could just pull the certificate of eligibility in order to go find that. If you wanted to start that process too, you can go into ebenefits.com, or it might even be ebenefits.gov, and create a profile if you haven't already in order to pull your certificate of eligibility. If you're talking to a loan officer, that loan officer is able to go to a VA portal we have access to as loan officers, and we can pull your certificate of eligibility there as well. So that will tell us what you served, if you've used it before, how much additional entitlement you have remaining, or even if your funding fee is exempt. It'll share all that information with us. So big part of it, just to get started, is to get your VA funding fee, and then we'll start from there. And then I ask really basic questions, right? What's your current employment look like? How are you receiving income? So transitioning out of the military is going to be a little bit different than somebody who's been out of the military for a long time. If you're starting a new career when you get out of the military, usually they like to see at least 6 months in that field before they're going to use that income. However, I always tell everybody, if you're an MP and you go to a sheriff's department, you're doing the same line of work. So the consistency there is going to allow you to transition over and use that income. The thing that we see when people are out for a longer period of time are either job gaps, where are those job gaps, what their pay looks like, are they a W-2 or are they a self-employed borrower? So we start to analyze those things, and then we start to look at the guidelines in order to get you qualified. Then we look at the property, right? Talked about doing a inspection first. That's just to make sure that the property is going to stand up, right? That you're not going to have problems over your first couple years as you transition into that home because you've taken on a new burden. Home ownership does have its benefits, but it also has its setbacks too, I will tell you. Sometimes I just want to burn my house down to the ground, and I love my house, right? My biggest blessing besides my family is my house because we all get to share it together. But from a property standpoint, what we do is after you go through the inspection, we then go and order an appraisal. Appraisal process with the VA loan is a little bit different than everybody else because it goes directly through the VA. The VA has a set group of appraisers that they utilize in order to go out and do the inspection and then create the report. Because of that, what we find is a lot of realtors are unaware of how the process works on the back end, and there's horror stories from 30, 40 years ago about how strict the VA home loans were, and there were always tons of stipulations that had to be met in order for the seller to sell the home. And that's not really necessarily the case anymore. All of the agency guidelines, whether we're doing a Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac loan, FHA loan, or VA loan, have all kind of condensed their guidelines to be the same. What I will tell you is that using a VA loan, there are things that come into play, like Tidewater, or being able to do a reconsideration of value that is different than everybody else. And if you understand where those things work and how they go into play or come into play, you can use that to your benefit when explaining that this is why it benefits you to go with a veteran, right? Don't be scared of the appraisal where there's always a stigma behind it. Assets, right? Assets come into play. They don't come into play as much on a VA loan as some of the other loan programs because you don't have to put a down payment down. But you still have to verify where the money comes from for your closing costs and your prepaids, right? Closing costs will typically, every state's a little bit different, But I always tell people closing costs are typically what closing costs are, $3,500, $4,000. If you wanted a lower interest rate, you could buy the rate down. It's called buying points that would then increase what your closing costs are. But your lender has a fee. There's an underwriting fee, a processing fee. A VA does cap it at 1%, so there's a 1% adjusted origination rule that it would fall under. So you are protected in that sense. So when we talk about, does it make sense? Yes, it makes sense. Here's why it makes sense. You're gonna be put in a loan program that most of the lenders out here try to do things for the veteran community, like waive that underwriting fee or have you reduced underwriting fee. The other part of the monies that you would have to bring to the table, and this is where it gets a little bit tricky, is the escrow account, or impound, some people will call it. The escrow account is about 12 to 14 months, and it just depends on how it's set up. There are some states that pay their taxes in arrears, and there are some states that pay their taxes as prepaid. In our case, here in Michigan, we pay our taxes as prepaid. So because that means that the seller has already paid the taxes for the year, so you're gonna have to pay him a portion back from where you purchased the home, what he's already paid. Then you're also going to have to put money into an account up front in order to make the payment when it comes due for the escrow. So let's say your taxes are $3,000 a year, right? We're gonna probably have to pay the seller back, depending on what time of year, anywhere about $1,000 to $1,500, and then we're gonna have to put $1,000 to $1,500 into that escrow account. And as you make your payment on a monthly basis, money is then distributed from your payment into this account and held until that tax bill comes due. They are mandatory on all VA loans. I've begged and pleaded for every single investor that I've ever worked with to try to get to waive those, because I feel that in certain situations, as you buy a house, those taxes may go up. Why? Because the person who owned your house before bought it at $100,000 and now they're selling it to you at $250,000. That percentage of what they purchased the home at and what it was valued at gets uncapped. You now have to pay a higher tax bracket or higher tax rate. So that escrow account could be short, and it throws some people off when they get the first bill from the mortgage company, or the mortgage company resets their escrow account to where it goes up $300 or $400. It's pretty substantial. So we try to do the best we can in order to prevent that from blindsiding you. One of the things that I was trying to do is get people's escrow accounts waived. I have not found an investor who can do that. If for some reason somebody's listening to this and they hear that, go down into the comments of wherever you're watching this and let me know where, because I will definitely jump on that bandwagon right away. Finally, we look at credit. And credit seems to be the one that everybody gets tripped up on, right? Some people just think it's a score. 620 is the score that's most often thrown out there. VA does not have a minimum requirement for a FICO score. I mean, technically, you can go all the way down to 500. The issue is that investors don't like to take on high-risk loans. So they create what's called their own overlay in their guidelines, meaning additional guidelines to the guidelines that VA puts out for their clients. We'll see some people will go down to 550, 580, or 620. When you start to get into those lower FICO scores, it does affect the cost of the loan. So they will charge you more, or they'll increase your interest rate in order for you to get financing. I know it sounds crazy, right? The guy who could actually make the payment, they give him the lower payment. The guy who can't make any payments, you're gonna give him a higher payment and expect him to continue to pay. I don't get it, but that's what it is, right? On that credit piece, when we review your credit, we look for a couple things. We look for lates in the last 12 to 24 months. We look for established credit, how many trade lines do you have and how long do you have them, and then what your payment history is. We have a credit repair team that we work with internally, so if you do reach out to us and you're in a spot where maybe we can't get you financed currently today, we can put you on a path in order to get you into a spot and figure it out from there. So you don't have to completely give up on. We find this many people, we pull their credit and they're 560. It's not a terrible score. It's not a good score, but it's not a terrible score. I've seen some terrible scores. I've seen ones where I think that people couldn't buy steam off a free lunch. That bad. 480. But anyway, so at 560, there might be some really basic things that we could do. Maybe there's no lates. Maybe it's just maxed out credit reports. Maybe there's something reporting an error. We work with our credit team. We get those things taken care of. But the disputed accounts, that's the one that we see that creates the most issue. If you have either fraud or something that's come up, or in my case, when I deployed, my bills didn't get paid, so Mine was a disaster when I got activated back after 9/11. So if that doesn't tell you anything, I was in from 96 to 2000, was going to school for a year. 9/11 happened. I got activated back to active duty, and I don't think I got paid for the first 3 months while I was back on active duty at that time. So my bills didn't get paid. Well, there are soldier sailor acts that we can utilize in order to get those things removed, but there were disputes on all of those things when I was trying to purchase my first home. So I had to work through getting those disputes removed and how to do it. The credit repair team is going to be the person who's going to help you with that as most. That's going to also go through my wife. I think we're good for the next one. So do you guys have any questions about qualification, income, property, assets, credit? This is a big one, right? Because we have to go through all of these things in order to get somebody to even go out and look at a home. Depending on where we fall, like there's some people that are super qualified, right? They've been on their job for 10 years, they receive a W-2 income, so it's very stable and steady. You can see it's $200,000 a year, year after year, and with a high FICO score, we're gonna look at what can we get you qualified for, all right? What are you looking to purchase? And that's easy. But when we're looking at somebody who maybe has a little bit of, we call it hair on the deal, meaning your FICO is a little sketchy, we call it like high fives. Your income is, you've shifted job. You've shifted jobs to, maybe you've gone from a self-employed job back to a W-2 job or that way, or the other way. So you've gone from a W-2 job to now you're self-employed. You know, it does make for some hurdles, right? Because they want you to be self-employed for 2 years to take that average of 2 years. And they might see like different areas that you want to purchase in, taxes and what type of assets that you have. You can also use gifts from family members in order to cover closing costs and prepaids. We talked about using concessions. So with Carlos and I working together in this situation, we're going to be able to structure that file in order to make sure that based on the amount of money that you currently have today and where you can qualify from an interest rate standpoint and then a loan amount standpoint, we're going to dial that in so that you're making the offers properly. You may pull up a property that you love, and Carlos looks at it and it's got taxes. We've pre-qualified you at taxes at $300 a month, and this one, for whatever reason, is $550. So Carlos is going to identify that, recognize that, and get back to me so we can see what we can do to get you in there and still qualify for that home. I had a question over here.
Yeah. So the question is, I understand that the VA, very user-friendly product, doesn't really take a look at your credit score, but your debt-to-income ratio.
So
can,
they do.
Can you expand on how they can really manage that debt-to-income ratio so they really understand like how to take care of that so they can get mortgaged?
Okay, absolutely. So let me preface this by, they do look at your FICO score up front, right? But it still is a matter of credit profile more than credit score. What does your credit profile look like as opposed to what's the score, the number of the score? I always say the score really only dictates what the cost of that loan is going to be for that interest rate. The lower the FICO score, the more cost it's going to be for that interest rate, or the higher that interest rate is going to be. When we look at the debt-to-income ratio, and this is one of the reasons why the VA loan is the highest performing loan on the back end, meaning after you close on the loan and you make your payments on a monthly basis, there's a default rate that gets measured through all the different agencies. And the VA has the lowest default rate. So we start to talk about what's called the debt-to-income ratio, based on the amount of debt that you have and the income that you have. The debts that they take into consideration are only debts that are going to show up on your credit report, right? We talk about your mortgage. So when you take out a mortgage, that's going to be your primary, your front-end ratio or your primary ratio, your housing ratio. Then we also have your back-end ratio, which then includes all of your credit cards, cars, and maybe if utilities, if they're on the credit report. But the reason why we don't usually include them on the VA loan is because we have what's called a residual income calculator. That residual income calculator takes into account the utilities that it costs to manage the house on a per square foot basis. So the bigger the house, the bigger those expenses are going to be. The VA takes that into account. And they also take into account things like buying shoes for your kids, putting gas in your car. Because the last thing they want to do is get you qualified and then you have no money to go to work or do the things that you need to do on a regular basis. So that's a big piece of it. But the debt to income ratio, has some flexibility with the VA because of that, where a lot of the, like the Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac loans will cap out at a 50% debt to income ratio, meaning that all of the debt plus your principal, interest, taxes, and insurance payment on the home cannot equate to more than 50% of the income that we're able to verify. And income can be sticky too. So let's say, for example, somebody who works a lot of overtime, and then magically they're not working as much overtime. That creates a big hindrance. So when I look at your W-2 from last year and it says $100,000 because you have $40,000 in overtime income, your base income is $60,000. So that would, instead of $5,000 a month, we're trying to qualify you with $8,200 a month. Whereas if your overtime income starts to drop, normally they take a 2-year average, but because they see it declining, I'm only going to take currently what your average is for the last 12 months. So these things come into play, but the VA allows for a higher debt to income ratio for approvable purposes. So we use an automated underwriting system, usually DU or LP is what they're called. They're abbreviations for desktop underwriter or loan prospector. Fannie's is DU, Freddie Mac is LP. But VA uses those and FHA uses the same tools. When we run those through, it'll approve. I've seen loans get approved at 63% back end for VA. And the reason why I see those is because we also have to pass that residual income requirement. So if you don't pass it, if you're taking up all of your, we call it disposable income, you have to then bring that back end ratio back down to maybe 55. And that's still pretty aggressive, right? I always encourage people to be comfortable with their payment, not to try to go to the max of what they can get approved for. You know, if they're currently paying $1,000 today and they can be qualified for $2,500, it's not necessarily the best thing to have a payment shock where you go from $1,000 to $2,500. Does that kind of answer your question, or is there any more that you? Okay. So that's it is a great question, and there are some differences with the VA product that allow us to, you know, be a little more flexible in the back end. Those are the things that Carlos was saying. Hey, this is a little more flexible. We talk about the actual guidelines for being approved. There's some things that you have to kind of tiptoe and walk, and every situation's a little bit different. Having somebody who really understands the VA guidelines and the VA handbook, it's called a 26-7. I used to read it to my kids for fun at night. I thought it was pretty funny, right? And we go from, we kind of went from there, and it's just something that I enjoyed, right? Finding ways to get people financed and knowing all those little niches inside of it in order to make sure I'm structuring the loan properly up front so that when you go out, you're shopping with confidence, and that those are our relationships, right? We want to make sure that we look good to everybody. So if your loan doesn't close, that's on us. We do our due diligence up front to make sure we don't run into those pitfalls. Things come up, try to work through them. And we'll probably get you, so if Carlos said he'll show you a home in 24 hours, that means I got to get my pre-approval out in less? Is that what that means? I think that's what it means. I can do it. We can do that. I'll put my wife on. I'll make her stay up tonight and do them all for you. What we got next?
All right.
Question.
Yep.
Can you talk about how somebody changing their job after you've pre-approved them can affect the loan process?
Oh, you're talking about taking on new credit and changing jobs.
Yeah, how can that affect, if you've pre-approved somebody, if they change jobs or let's say take out an additional credit card, can you discuss how that affects the pre-approval?
Well, I will say that most of the time lenders will tell you not to do it right off the rip. But there are times where, let's say we pre-approved you to go out and start shopping in March, and now it's May. So it's been 2 months, and you've got a new job opportunity that's actually going to pay you more money. That's a good thing, right? Now it's going to be easier to qualify. Maybe we can get a little more aggressive on the offers. So that's not necessarily a bad thing. If you're just tired of your job and you want to change, I would say hold off until you get to closing. You sign your documents and then make that decision of where you're at. Things might shake out and pan out. Have a conversation with your loan officer before you make any moves. The bigger piece, I'm glad that you brought this up, goes back to where we talk about credit. We find more times than not, we pull credit, we get through the process, and then while we're in process and right before we close, all of the lenders do a refresh on the credit report to see if you've taken any new debt. They look for new inquiries. If you have, they're going to put that back into the debt to income ratio. So we see people who are excited about buying a home. They go to Art Van back in the day. Where do we go now? Gardner White, right? Loves. So these people go and they buy their furniture before they move in, and they now have a $200 additional payment on their credit report. That could cost you a loan. Don't buy new cars just so you have a nice car in the driveway. Wait till you actually own the driveway before you put a nice car in it. Right? All right, and next page. We talked about a lot of these things where we talk about where the lender and the realtor fit together. It's really about that relationship, right? We talk about what I would say is we spend a lot of time together trying to find the best way to get new business. Simple as that. So if we're out trying to find new business, as soon as it comes in, as long as you have that relationship. Now, we get people that come to us all the time that already have a realtor, and we meet that realtor for the first time. We understand how important it is for that person for us to communicate with the realtor on a regular basis. So we reach out to all persons in the party, meaning the person who's selling the home as well as your realtor, and we keep them both informed throughout the process. Anything that comes up has to be addressed right away. Carlos and I have that relationship where if something does come up, you can either bring it to him, he'll bring it directly to me, and vice versa. A lot of times there's things that we have to negotiate through. So let's say something comes up on the appraisal where there's a repair that needs to be made before we can close because it's subject to on the appraisal. That's going to be something that Carlos is going to work with the other realtor, and I'm going to address that with him right away. Those things can fall through the cracks when people don't have a relationship between the two of them, and it could cause delays. The process is already sticky enough as it is. There's so many moving parts to it, so many disclosures, documents, and different bodies that are involved in it. So for example, when the file comes over to us, we send it over to one of our investors. Those investors have people all over the back end doing their due diligence and research on the back end, making sure that do what's called a verification of employment to make sure that you really truly are currently employed there. They have an underwriter that reviews your income and assets. They might even have people that, if you're buying a condo, who are going to order your condo documents for you. So there's a lot of moving parts, and as those things come up, you have to have really good communication. You got to have people that are going to answer your phone. You got to have people that are going to respond to emails. I'm not as good at it as my wife is, so that's why I always say I think she's a way better LO than I am, right? We talk about property selection and how that aligns, right? What's that say down there? Can anybody read that? It says realtors must show property that meets both the requirements, right? I can't read that. I don't have I think I need to read. Am I getting old? I used to be able to shoot. I can't see anymore. This is crazy. And having that coordination. So you find a home. We talked about using seller concessions, structuring the deal the right way, understanding where they qualify. Some of those conversations are going to take 25, 30 minutes between Carlos and I to make sure that it's set up the right way so you're getting exactly what you want and fits your bill. Many times I see a realtor will I can't tell you how many times we just get a contract without even knowing that the person's putting an offer in. We may have sent them a pre-approval letter 2 months before, and now we have an offer that came in and it didn't look anything like we discussed from the pre-approval. Whether it's the property value or the sale price is much higher, whether the taxes are maybe completely different, maybe we've discussed getting concessions and there's no concessions on it. So we have to go back after that offer comes in and try to renegotiate or find out where those things are. But if Carlos had come to me up front, we set it up the right way, we present the offer the right way. If it gets countered, then we can then work together in order to make sure we're all pieces of the puzzle are covered. But most important out of all of it is that you're the centerpiece. Right? As a buyer, you're the person that we're trying to make sure that is going to get into the home. I will tell you, I probably closed 1,500 transactions in my life as a loan officer, maybe 10,000 when I was an account executive for many years for some of the bigger companies over the past 20 years. There's nothing better than watching somebody close on their first home. There just isn't. That feeling that you get to watch somebody be just so elated that they got their dream home or they're finally a homeowner, it's awesome. And as veterans, Right? That is the first step to the American dream. We get out, what do we get? I mean, pat on the back and move along. There's some things out there, the lack of support that the VA provides us is a problem in itself. So if we can band together and use these things as an opportunity to give back to one another, get ourselves in a spot where you can create a family to give you that community that you maybe once had while you're in the military, that's what I'm looking for. So that's my biggest why I do this, because I just love to see people get into something that they're really, truly proud of and have earned. And I think that's it, right? So the next one is, right? So we just have a quick recap. You don't need a down payment, right? I can't read this. They're likely eligible, and then know what lenders expect. This is bad. I'm gonna go get glasses today.
No, you're all good.
Reach out to start today. Yeah, that's the one. Reach out to start today. So Dominic Licata, Lux Lending. My information. If you're watching this on a recorded, we'll make sure we go down in the comments and we'll post what our contact information is. Dominic at luxlending.com, faithvalorgrowth@gmail.com are two ways to get a hold of me as well. Any questions? No. All good?
No, I think we're good.
All right.
Thank you, sir. Much
Yep,
appreciated.
Grab this.
A lot of great information there. And first and foremost, Dom, we want to thank you for your service to our country. Much appreciated.
Yeah, thank you for your taxes.
Indeed. But ultimately, Dom is a great resource of information. He's been in the shoes of a lot of you veterans as well, so he's a great resource to reach out to. So make sure that you do utilize that to be able to reach out to him and do that. All right, so up next we have Mr. Art Crosby of Pillar to Post. Pillar to Post is a home inspection company. He's going to come up here and discuss the home inspection process that you had heard Carlos mention about, which is a very, very, very important part of the home purchase process. Sometimes it's actually the end-all, be-all of a home purchase process. So he's going to come up here and go through the process of the home inspection for the purchase. Art Crosby with Pillar to Post.
Do I need this? Oh, you got it? No, I'll be good. All right. So I'm Art Crosby with Pillar to Post Home Inspectors. We're a franchise. I'm based in Chesterfield, Michigan. I want to talk to you about the home buying process. So at this point, you've either gone to a workshop, you've gotten yourself pre-approved, you got yourself mortgage ready. You've been introduced to your realtor. If you don't know Carlos, you found a realtor that you trust to help you through this process. Hopefully the realtor will make a couple recommendations, or you'll go online, do your due diligence, and you'll find an inspection company that's going to come out and help you evaluate one of the largest purchases that you'll make in your life. That's where I come in. The home inspection process, it is a tool that buyers can use to make sure that the property that they're buying meets their qualifications for purchase. The home inspection should not be used to renegotiate the price. That's a byproduct of the inspector finding defects that your agent can then use to talk to the other side about how do we fix these things. Let me just kind of go off and say that everything can be fixed coming out of an inspection. The true intent of a home inspection so that you have a working knowledge of the home that you're buying. When you are looking for an inspector, I would check their website, I would check their resources, their online views. Everything that we do today has a review. I think that my information will be dropped in the chat. You can go to my site, have over 1,500 online reviews. You can call, you can ask questions. But during the inspection process, your inspector, he or she should have a working knowledge of the home. They're not electricians, they don't have to be roofers, they don't have to be HVAC specialists, but they should have a firm understanding of the home itself. I break the home down into several systems. I see the home as about five to seven systems. You have your roofing system, your electrical system, your HVAC system, plumbing. Then you can talk about all your safety items so that the buyer understands what he or she is actually getting. The biggest component of a home inspection should also focus on maintenance or lack of maintenance, because if you don't maintain a home, it's going to fall apart. Some things I also want the buyers to know, that when you are out looking for homes, pay attention to water staining. If you have an interest in buying a home that has a basement, and you go down to the basement and you see stains on the walls, you see paneling that's peeling off, chipped and peeling paint, those should just be things that you should be mindful of before you go and put in your offer. Okay? Again, the home inspection is a key piece in the home buying process. Shouldn't be used to renegotiate, but it should be made, helps you become aware of the product that you're getting ready to purchase. Any questions? Yes.
My question for you is, so I've heard people purchasing home and they had like a long list of things that came up on the inspection report, and it's kind of confusing to a lot of people, especially being their first time buying a home. How do I know if it's like a good home? Or should I run away from it, or should I, like, how would I know if I should keep it or run away from it? Because it's like a lengthy thing, and that can be a little scary.
Sure. So when you do a home inspection, you should have a report that's anywhere between 8 to 12 pages. It's a house, right? A house has several systems. It has over 10,000 components or pieces that put it together. Your inspector's job is to take that house apart systematically to go through it. So the average size of one of my reports is 8 to 10 pages with the pictures. If, to your question, Carlos, if you get a laundry list or a long list of conditions, hopefully the reporting that the inspector has done has broken those out into maintenance items, because you got to maintain a house. A maintenance item would be putting dirt around the house so that the water doesn't go towards the foundation, trimming the trees, cleaning the gutters. Those are maintenance items. Then you get into, say, defects. The furnace doesn't work properly. The AC system doesn't run as cool as it's supposed to. When they open up the electrical panel, you have a couple circuits in there that are double tapped, meaning you have 2 wires on 1 breaker. The lights don't work in the kitchen. Then you get into maybe some structural defects. There's cracks in the wall, or on the outside of the roof, you're missing some shingles. When you put all those individual items together, it forms a report. Generally, when I brief my clients, I tend to lean into water and safety items. All water issues should be looked at in terms of how do we want to navigate that condition. Is it a current condition or is it a prior condition? And all safety items, trip hazards, missing handrails, having the receptacles near water not properly grounded with GFIs. All those things your agent can help you work through after you get a good quality home inspection report. So just because you have a report on the buy side, just because you have a long report with a lot of conditions, that's not necessarily a bad thing. That's leverage for you. If the inspector's gone through and he or she's constructed a well-written report and you have 15 pages, a lot of it's probably going to be maintenance, and you take your top 10 items and you say, okay, these are the things that we want to focus on. And part of my briefing to my first-time home buyers, when I brief them, I let them know that I would expect a first-time home buyer to be okay with 95% of the conditions I'm going to find in the home. It's not a new build. Now, if it's a new build, that's something different. But I'm talking about a resale property. It's been on the market. The home was built 40, 50 years ago, 20 years ago. It's been remodeled. You should expect, as a new home buyer, to be okay with about 95% of the conditions that I would find in a home inspection report. Because I'm going to focus on maintenance, lack of maintenance, safety, non-working mechanicals, and anything the homeowner may have done to the home that's not right. Okay? So, next question.
Yeah, Carlos had mentioned something earlier with the inspection regarding a sewer scope. Is that part of the standard inspection, or is that something separate?
Okay, so each inspector should have a standard, like a guideline that they use. I use the ASHI standard. ASHI stands for the American Society of Home Inspectors. Some inspectors they use a different standard. So part of my inspection, I do a plumbing inspection, but I don't do an invasive plumbing inspection like a sewer scope. Invasive meaning I'm not opening up the drains, taking a camera, running through the sewer line. That's an additional service that in certain neighborhoods, that is something that you should highly consider getting. If you're buying a home in an old neighborhood, if you're buying a home that has large maturing trees on the property, or just has a history of flooding, like here in the Metro Detroit area. Detroit's an old city, a lot of big maturing trees. If you can get a sewer scope, you should get one. Royal Oak, not as old as Detroit, but they've had issues in the past. A lot of homes that are purchased in certain communities, sewer scoping is just part of your inspection service. Questions? No? Okay, good. So, in short, one of the most, let me just kind of add these bullets here. Sometimes in the market of buying homes, buyers will sometimes have to face decisions because they really like the home. It's a competitive offer situation, and they're considering waiving the home inspection. Don't do it. Don't do it. The things that I find in homes that I think, wow, if this was a home that had multiple offers and they were considering waiving the inspection, they'd be in trouble. I went into a home yesterday. There was a 45-pound raccoon in the attic space. If you would have waived your inspection, you would have had trouble because it had been up there for quite some time and had done a fair amount of damage and left several calling cards all throughout the attic space. So if you are thinking about buying a home, you've gone this far, you've sat in the classroom, you've gotten yourself pre-approved, you found a realtor, you found a lender, you've done all these things to move heaven and earth, you found me, you found an inspector, you found a house for $300 to $500, that's not the time to go cheap. That's not the thing that you want to go light on. You find some other option to give up, but get your home inspected, please. You will save yourself tens of thousands of dollars. Yes.
With that beast that was in the attic, like I'm sure you don't help remediate that yourself, but how much would something like that be? I'm just thinking about like how much it might cost a potential buyer.
Well, that particular house, the raccoon had gone to the back of the home and actually put a hole in the roof, about an 8 to 10 inch hole, and with the amount of droppings that he left, or she, you probably have to remediate the entire attic because all the insulation has urine and feces all over it. So you're probably looking at a couple $1,000, $2,000 to $3,000 to get everything out of there, re-insulate, sanitize, fix the roof. Yeah, absolutely. Question.
Okay,
I'm gonna show you the
so if
picture.
I were to pay for an inspection and let's say I don't move forward on the house, do I get that money back?
So you've found a home.
Yeah.
I show up to do the inspection.
Yeah.
And I do the inspection. I do the job you pay me to do, and I find that there's critters in the house. Raccoons, bugs, home prior, maybe it was some bed bug activity, right? And you say, nope, this one's not for me. Your question is, do I refund the money on the job that I did?
Yeah, if I don't go through with the house, do I get that money back?
So I can't speak on every inspector, but for me, if I've performed the job, the answer is no, because I've done the job. Now, I'm gonna tell you how I work. If in going through my process, because I break the home inspection down into 5 areas, if I get to a critical spot, if I get through my exterior and we're talking, and then I go to the basement to start my next phases, which when I call it the core systems of the electrical, the HVAC, and part of the plumbing, and we're in the basement, and we see this huge vertical crack in the wall, like huge, and we just start talking about it. And you say, nah, that's not for me. Or you see something in your 15 to 30 minutes of walk around, maybe you found some critters, or the house just didn't give you the right vibe, right? If you stop me now, and I don't have to write you a report, and you've already paid me, you got a credit with me. That's just me. I cannot speak on everybody else. All right? Okay. Any other questions? No? All right. Again, thank you for coming this far. Thank you for your service. The VA program, I've purchased 15 homes through the VA loan process. Great product. Definitely get your homes inspected. It's going to save you tens of thousands of dollars, and to give you peace of mind knowing that your home isn't going to make you sick and that you didn't buy a money pit. If you've never seen the movie Money Pit by Tom Hanks, watch that movie. That's another reason to have a home inspection. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Art. And speaking in regards to the inspection process, what you have to look at it as, regarding to the question that was asked about, can he pay you back if you don't move forward? An inspection process is an investment. That's how you have to look at it. It's better to spend that $300 to $500 up front as opposed to you having to spend $20,000, $30,000 6 months after you bought that home. So ultimately, when it comes down to the inspection, you have to look at that as an investment that you're making for your security. No different than any other situation where you're trying to make sure that you're set up in a proper place. So inspections are needed. As Art stated, I would never, ever advise waiving an inspection. You just have too much on the line when it comes down to it. So, but thank you for your information, Art. Much appreciated. So up next, ultimately, when buying a home, you want to make sure that it's insured, to make sure that you're protected throughout the process in case anything happens. So you do need homeowners insurance. Up next, we have Mr. Clem Jackson of the Clem Jackson Agency, who's going to come up here and discuss what type of policies are available when making a purchase as a homeowner and the facets of what go into your insurance policy. So, Clem Jackson, back.
All right. How's everyone? All right, my name is Clemia Jackson of Clemia Jackson Agency, and my physical office is located in Southfield. And I'm gonna just touch bases on insurance that Art was talking about as far as the inspectors goes, because I run into this problem a lot. When I'm trying to get insurance for the insured on their homes and different things like that, and I tell them all the time that, hey, you have to really get all the information from the lender to make sure they want the home to be actual cash value, replacement costs, and also some of them are requiring a certain amount of liability for the homes. And not only that, the inspector, you have to make sure that you get that right certified inspector, because I get clients that they say, well, I've been calling around for insurance and they looked at my roof and they declined it. And I had an inspector out there. I said, well, obviously you didn't have the right inspector. I said, because every insurance company, after that policy is written, 10 to 30 days, they're gonna send their own inspector out. Now, the biggest thing, a lot of carriers ask are, first of all, the wiring. They wanna know, is this aluminum or is the plumbing copper? Or is, say for instance, your electrical. They want to make sure that it's circuit breakers or it's fuses. And depending on which one it is, you can get denied. You can get denied of that insurance. Now, you went through the whole process of getting okay for this loan and different things like that. But now, the deal is killed because you're still looking for insurance, or it's prolonged for a couple weeks for closing and different things like that. And in order for you to find that right insurance company that will take you, because certain insurances, at this day and time, and you can't blame them, insurance is a business. And they're looking out for their best interests also. But you got to make sure, as your investment, that you get the right inspector to look at everything. Look at your plumbing, look at that roof, and make sure he's a qualified plumber or inspector. Because if the house is 100 years old, they're going to decline you automatically. If the updates are not updated within the last 15 to 25 years, if you haven't had the updates on plumbing, roofing, and all that, and they want to know who did it, what's a qualified contractor. And at this time, they want to know the address and different things of that person. And it's not just they're going to take your word about it, because I had an incident when I was trying to get this property for this particular building down in Detroit. And the gentleman was an out-of-town investor, and he purchased this 28-unit apartment. Well, he was doing everything online. And, you know, he's getting a good deal and everything on the property, because the property itself was valued over about $1.5 million. But he was getting a good deal, he thought, because the deal was like 900 and some thousand. So, in the process of that, in order for the mortgage company to clear everything, he had to come to me, the insurance company. And he was trying to find insurance. It was aluminum wiring, which is, most carriers is unacceptable with that. The plumbing hasn't been updated. The inspector looked at the roof, because I went out there myself, and I looked at it, and you saw little leaks here and there and different things like that. So the insurance company, it finally took me, literally, it took me a month and a half to find a carrier that would insure the building. And I had to go out into what you call the surplus line in order to get it insured. Now, they came out. They sent their inspector out. And when they sent their inspector out, they looked at all these different things that was going on, because the other inspector said everything was good. He had a book on it and everything, you know, everything was good. But it was literally a book of pages. And he was saying everything was good, and the aluminum, only certain things with the aluminum, but it was okay. But when they did it, it was like, no way, no way. Now, the insurer was like, well, why do I have to pay? It was like $38,000 for a year for his premium. But the clause was that they gave him 30 days. Everything had to be brought up to code, or he didn't get that insurance. So if he didn't get the insurance, guess what? The lender wants their investment. So it's cut. It's dead. And everything is thrown out the window. And that's going just with residential. It's the same with the residentials. And people are always saying, well, why is insurance so high? And depending on the areas, it's going to be high at this day and time, because insurance, like it was, we'll say 5 years ago or 2 years ago, is not the same. It's not the same. It can change. It can change from today, totally different than it was yesterday. And you'd be like, man, I can't get any insurance. Why is it so, I'm having so many problems getting this house insured? And it's like, when you're not properly insured with your investments, because it's a homeowner's one, and it's a homeowner's two, and a homeowner's three. Now, homeowner's two is a basic. And a lot of carriers will, insurance companies will accept the basic. But a lot of them are going to ask for that homeowners 3. Because that homeowners 3, it also carries what they call a special. Special perils, that means basically anything that may happen to your house. If someone runs into the house with their car, if the wind blows the roof off the house, and if the basement happened to flood because of sewage. But you also have to be careful with that, because a lot of insurance companies, they may offer initially only $5,000 in the policy. So it's up to you or your agent to look at it and say, hey, well, $5,000 is not even going to cover your furnace and your water here if it gets flooded down there. So, and not only that, don't have furniture down there that's costing you $25,000 because you had a bar, granite, or whatever case you may have down there. So now it's up to you and the agent to go over different terms and say, hey, I want $50,000 in sewage backup. Because sewage backup is exactly what it says, sewage backup. So if you don't get enough coverage, it doesn't cover the contents. Because the fire, if it's a fire or something, that's a different thing. Now will cover your furniture and all the contents of the fire. But water damage down there with the sewage backup, you have to be very careful with this insurance. And I tell my clients, you have to be upfront with me. When I'm writing this, you got to be upfront. It's got to be a warrant. It's got to be trust between you and I. Because I'm going to look at it on the satellite. And when I look at it on the satellite, and I'm going to call you back, and I'm going to say, well, is this house looks like this? Is it boarded up? Is your neighbor's house boarded up? And all that? All those things makes a difference with these insurance carriers, because they be like, why is the house boarded up? So they're going to look at all of that. And you want replacement costs? No, they're not willing to do it. Because with the material and different things of today, to build that house is way more expensive today to build that house. And then you got to look at also the material they're using now is not good material. Let's be realistic. So you're paying actually more, and you're not getting a better house, because you can hear your neighbor talking within your bedroom, and different things like that. So, so it's really crazy how insurance goes. And it's so much into it, because when I got into it, I didn't realize I was always on the front end with my businesses and different things like that. And I was young and dumb, and I thought I could skate without not having an insurance. And everything, when you have something, you got to really put something in your investment. You got to go and get that insurance, whether it costs you. If you want it, and you want to protect your investment, if anything happens, because one thing about it, the unexpected always happens. It always happens. And everything that you say, well, I don't need this or I don't need that. And what I do is, with my people, I tell you to email me what you want. Because I don't want to come back saying, hey, I told you this or I told you that. No, I'm going to pull this up. I'm going to say, this is what you told me to do. I gave you the options on what you should need. I gave you my expertise on it, because a lot of lenders, they don't know what they're talking about as far as insurance. Their specialty is lending money. My specialty is insurance. So a lot of times me and the lender will go back and forth because they will say, for instance, you may buy a house and you're going to say, I'm going to purchase this house, but I'm going to do some renovations on it. Now, depending on the renovations, you don't get a standard insurance policy. You get one that's called builder's risk or renovations. Because if you don't get the right insurance, and an insurance company come out there, and they're going to say, well, why are you doing renovations on it? And certain ones want the house boarded up because it's vacant. So you have to be very careful on when you purchase a home. If it's vacant, you got to make sure that you're getting the right insurance. Because if they come out there in 10 days, there's been cases I had to go and take pictures and show them that the individual stayed out there. Because they look at it and say, no, they don't. When the inspector came out, he said it didn't look like it. It didn't look like nobody was there. And so I had to go take pictures in the house, room by room, to show that that individual stayed there. So my thing is with insurance, it can be so tricky, and sometimes you just, depending on what your needs are, you have to sometimes just sit down with your person, your agent, and if you have a good agent, he's going to tell you the right things to do, or she's going to tell you the right things to do, And I'm not just saying it because of me, because long as you get your things insured the proper way, it's all good with that. I'm good with that, But my thing is, because I already know I'm not going to beat everybody's price. I already know that. But what I offer my clients is customer service. Because I'm going to sit down and I'm going to tell you the do's and the don'ts. Whether you take my advice or not, it's totally up to you. Because my thing is, I've been on both sides. Both sides. So now I kind of know what I'm talking about, and I'm kind of learning. So it's like I stay in my lane, and my lane is insurance. So I really can't really talk too much about insurance like that because that's something one-on-one that me and the insured has to talk about, because a lot of things are personal. But if you have any questions, let me know.
Hey, I think the water damage was a great point, or the sewer backup damage was a great point. I was just wondering, estimating what would be the cost difference from, let's say, for instance, a $5,000 basic policy for the sewer backup damage, over a $50,000
Okay,
policy.
That's a good one. Now, you got to remember, with sewage backup, the number one thing, if you get a foot of water in your basement, what's coming up next? Mold. Now, they got to tear the walls up in order to get in there to get the mold. Do you think $5,000 is going to cover them tearing up that wall? Do you think it's going to cover you putting a new water heater and furnace? That's your $5,000 right there. It's gone. So that's why I say you have to sit down and talk and think about it. Just the problem of mold alone can cost you a few thousand. Especially if they have to tear the whole walls and the whole basement up and cost you.
No, I was kind of referring to what would be maybe a difference in the policy.
So it varies. It varies because it could be from actual, depending on the company. See, so I can't really just say, hey, it's going to be 500 or 200 or something like that. I can't say that because I can't give the prices. Just like a lot of people will say, well, Clem, how much you think I'm gonna pay for this house insurance? I really don't know because the house is alone is on the square footage. And you can go to 5 different carriers and one company may value your property at $250,000. Another company might value your house at replacement cost $500,000. You'd be like, ain't nowhere in the world my house worth no $500,000. No, they're just talking about the dwelling itself. They're just talking about the dwelling itself. The way they calculate, every carrier calculates the square footage different. So you're not gonna get the same price every time you go with a different carrier. You're not gonna get the same price. You can go with 5 carriers and get 5 different prices on insurance. And then, like with that, when you was talking about the sewage is like I said, you have to take in so many things in account. And to me, it's worth it. If it's $500 extra on that policy, if it's $300, it's worth it because you never know.
You say extra $500 or $300. Is that like for the term of the policy for the year or 6 months, or is that like?
No, it would be generally your house policy. It's going to be a year.
Okay.
It's going to be a year, so it's going to be within the policy itself. So it's going to bring the premium up. The more you add, the more the premium going to go up.
It seems like that would definitely be worth it just for extra $500.
Oh, it will be worth it. It will be worth it.
absolutely.
You know, it will be.
Yeah,
It definitely.
I can see like if it was like a monthly thing that how it could like be out of somebody's budget, but over the course of 12 months, I think that's very, very reasonable.
Yeah, because sometimes I'll be talking to people, and I say, do you know what's in your policy? And a lot of them don't realize that they don't have sewage backup. A lot of them, you'll be surprised how many don't realize it. And then when I talk some of them, they'll look at it and say, oh man, I only have $5,000 in water backup. I say, man, you better go change that real quick.
And do you think that's because of they may have gotten a policy that they just did online rather than talk to an individual like you?
I think talking to a good agent is more beneficial to you because you can build a rapport with him and he can see exactly what your needs, or she can see exactly what your needs are. Now, you're doing something online, come on, I'm gonna be honest with you. Some of them is like, hey, they doing the basics. Give you the basics, and that's done with it. But as far as if you have a good agent, he or she is gonna make sure in your best interest that you get the best policy, because me, myself, I want all your business. So I'm gonna make sure that your policy is where you're supposed to be and where you need to be. Now, like I said, I'm giving you that choice to make a decision on which policy you want and what you want within that policy. But I want it in writing also.
Yeah, so they're accountable to their decisions.
Yes, because I'm not going to go back and forth and argue with you about, well, you told me this or you told me that. No, we're going to put it in writing.
That makes perfect sense.
We're going to put it in writing. And, that way, we don't even have to argue about it. And I'll just go to my email or my texts and say, pull it up and send it to you. And say, this is what you told me. And they'd be like, well, can I just give you the information over the phone? No, here's my email. Here's my email. Well, I don't know how to do it. Well, you got to come to the office and write it down. I want something in writing to prove, because let's be realistic. We're in a sue-happy world. People play games. And, honestly, I'm in business for one thing, to make money. And if I make a friend along the way, beautiful. Beautiful. But I'm in it to make the money. And I know one thing about business. It's all about where I'm going to make my money is referrals. If I treat you right and do what I'm supposed to do, you're going to send me 10 clients. They're going to send me 10 clients, and so on and so on. So therefore, I'm making money over and over. So, like I said, I learned a long time ago, you treat people right, you give them. What we don't have today is customer service. Every time you guys pick up the phone for insurance, did you get the same person? Then you have an issue, now you got a headache. Because you don't have an agent that's taking care of that problem. Because I have the headache. Because I'm the one trying to get your refunds. I'm the one that's doing everything, and I'm just giving you the paperwork to sign. But I'm getting a headache, because believe me, some days I don't get anything done because I'm putting out fires. Yeah, right. So, which I love. Don't get me wrong, I love it, but that's where it comes in with customer service. And when people see that, they respect that. They respect that because they know anytime you can call me on my cell phone. I might not get back with you then, but I will get back with you as soon as I can. Or you call the business line, the landline, I'm going to get back with you. It's just a matter of time, depends on how busy I am. Or shoot me an email or a text, So you have different ways to get in touch with me and everything like that. Because like I said, and if you guys, it's just so many ways that insurance is so valuable. Whether your business name or anything, it can be anything. And that's where I come in. That's all I can offer as far as insurance. And I'm gonna leave it alone. If you have any more questions, let me know.
Yeah, one question. Like, let's say in the first 2 to 3 years of home ownership, from your experience, what have you seen as far as what you've received like the most claims on, usually within somebody's first 2 to 3 years of ownership?
The last 2 years.
No, just say somebody.
I'm gonna say the last 2 years. I'm gonna give you an example of the last 2 years. It's been water damage. It's because I had clients call me and say they only gave me $25,000 for my basement for the sewage backup, and they're upset about it. And I told them, I say, when I told you to get the $50,000, you said $25,000 because you wanted the policy lower. I say, back to what I was telling you about the proof. I had the proof there. So she couldn't say anything. So that is one. And another one is leaks in the ceiling. Because you can't see it when you put, a lot of people if they don't get the right inspectors, you can't see it. So now you're starting getting leaks in the walls. Your walls are starting to buckle, or your floors are starting to buckle. So those two are lately, I can really say that those two are the most. And also, because of the weather has been so funny, with the wind damage, trees falling off on homes and different things like that. So it's about 3 or 4 different things that I can say. The trees, the ceiling, the roof, and that water backup. So those there, to me, it's just they're major. And now I'm leaving one out, liability. Liability. You got to get liability on your home, because if you're giving a gathering and someone gets hurt on your property, if they slip in the backyard or something, or if they slip on the porch or anything like that, guess what they're gonna do? And say, I know from experience, I was a little kid, and one of my aunties was going up the stairs in 1969. She was going up the stairs, and she fell. It was slippery. They hadn't cleaned the ice off. Guess what? She sued her sister. And they're not speaking to this day because of that. She sued her. The insurance company paid her and everything like that, but you got to have that liability too. That's another key. So with those things being said, it's like I said, sometimes we just have to sit down and talk about it. And you can call me on the phone and we say, well, we can shoot the breeze and talk about exactly what your needs are and different things like that. So is there anything else to be asked? All right, gentlemen. Y'all have a good one.
Thank you, Clem. Very, very, very important information. You want to make sure you're always protected. Insurance is the key. Before we continue, we just want to first give a shout out and thanks to Elam Restorations Ministries. They are the organization that was so generous to let us host this event at their venue. So we want to thank them and Pastor Andaluz for allowing us to host this event for veterans. It's very much appreciated. Just let everybody know, tomorrow they will be hosting a veterans-based church service. So come on down if you're a veteran, or anybody come on down and enjoy a great service. The address is 13325 East 14 Mile Road in Sterling Heights. Again, that will be a church service based around military tomorrow, but anybody's more than welcome to come. Obviously, love to have the veterans here, but we love to have everybody here. So make sure you come down tomorrow for a great service. Following up to a few things regarding Clem and Dominic, what you got to know about those two individuals, that they are actually brokers. So brokers, the benefit of working with a broker is they're signed up with multiple people in that category. So Dominic is signed up with multiple lenders. Clem is signed up with multiple insurance agencies. The benefit of using a broker is because they give you options to shop. If you go to, let's say, Chase, or you go to State Farm, you're only going to be able to get access to Chase's products, and you're only going to be able to get access to State Farm's products. And if you don't qualify for one reason or another, you're going to be kind of stuck. But if you work with a broker like Dominic, or you work with a broker like Clem, they're signed up with multiple lenders and multiple insurance agencies. So even if this lender over here doesn't work, they could take you over to a different lender and still possibly get you approved. Or if this insurance company won't get you a policy, Clem could take you over to a different company and look at it. So that's the importance of working with a broker like Clem and Dominic, who are great resources in regards to the home buying process. All right, so as I stated earlier, my name is Leon Mallett. I am a title agent with Title Connect. We are a title and escrow company based out of Farmington Hills, Michigan. In terms of the home purchasing process, I'm going to go ahead and touch base on the part that we play in the process as far as making a home purchase. So as far as title goes, what is a title company? So a title company is a neutral third party in a real estate transaction. Ultimately, it is our responsibility to make sure that all parties on both sides' best interest is protected. We have three primary functions as a title company. The first one is to provide title insurance. The second one is to maintain escrow. And the third is to act as a closing and notary for documents for your purchase. All right, ultimately, what is title? So title is ultimately who has ownership rights to the property. It determines the rights to be able to have enjoyment of the actual land. It also potentially can determine who has limitations as far as to being able to sell. Depending on how the title and deed is set up, it may limit somebody's ability to be able to sell. Let's say, for instance, in a homeowner association, where they may say there's only a specific amount of units that are allowed to be rental units. So if somebody's looking to potentially purchase as a rental unit, if they've already reached their maximum, that might prevent them from doing so. Also, too, we are used as a insurance to mitigate risk. So just like any other insurance, albeit your car insurance, your health insurance, life insurance, ultimately the whole purpose of title insurance is to transfer the risk from you, the consumer, over to the insurance company in the event that something happens pertaining to your title. So as far as title goes, there are two different types of policies. You have your owner's policy and you have your lender's policy. So as far as the owner's policy goes, that's the insurance that the buyer and seller basically agrees that there are no liens or encumbrances on the property when the seller is ultimately selling it to the buyer. Does anybody know what liens and encumbrances are? You said, what was that? A lien or an encumbrance on a property, yes. That's right. Your mortgage is a lien. So when you are taking out a mortgage to buy a home, that mortgager is going to have a lien on your property until ultimately it's paid off. So that is correct. That's not the only lien, though. There are also other types of liens that you can have. You can have what are called tax liens. So if you owe your municipality money, they can ultimately slap a lien against your home. At the end of the day, what a lien is basically somebody who has a ownership interest in your property who's not the actual owner of the property. Another situation where a lien could come into place is, let's say you have a contractor who does work. They replace your roof, and you do not compensate them. Ultimately, that roofer can slap a lien on your house until they're compensated. And that will prevent you from being able to sell that home until they have been compensated for that and ultimately release that lien. So liens and discharges can be good and bad. Like I said, just because it's a lien doesn't necessarily mean it's bad, because a mortgage is a good thing. But ultimately, until that mortgage is paid off, that lien is going to be with the property. So at the end of the day, what we do as a title company, basically we check through county records, courts, and local municipalities to verify if there are any liens on the property before we ultimately issue what's known as a warranty deed. And the purpose of that is, again, to make sure that you are protected once you are buying your home. Liens run with the property regardless of who owns it. So if somebody has a lien, like I said, from a contractor, and let's say you buy it from them on a quit claim deed, that lien is not going away just because you bought it. That lien is going to stick with the property. So ultimately, that's the basis of getting title insurance, which is where we verify everything up front, make sure there is no issues with liens, or if they are, that they get cleared up. So ultimately, when you are buying that house from the seller, you can go into it knowing I don't have to worry about any issues pertaining to somebody having an interest on my house when I purchased it. Now, with that being said, there are situations where, liens do come up that during the search we may have actually found. Just in regards to giving you an example, I had a client who made a home purchase, and basically he went out to the house the Monday. He closed on a Friday. He went out there on a Monday to start working on fixing the house up. When he got out there on a Monday, ultimately there were demo tags on his house. So he was like, okay, I'm coming out here to fix the house. Why are these demo tags on the house? He called his agent up, obviously upset and angry, which then his agent obviously called me upset and angry, like, what's going on? And I told him, we did the title search. There was nothing that came back on public records stating that it was on the demo list. So I called, and first I called, and then I actually had to go downtown Detroit and speak to the head attorney of Blight to see why was this house on the demo list. Ultimately, when we did our title search, nothing came up. And basically, they found out that the city of Detroit made an error in terms of not actually filing that lien or filing the notice that it was on the demo list. It was their mistake. They admitted it. They just said they don't know what happened. We accidentally forgot to file it. So I said, okay, well, since you guys made the mistake, why don't you go ahead and take him off the demo list and, maybe put him on a rehab agreement. And I was told, well, technically, since we gave the seller all the notices we were technically by law supposed to give him, it was up to the seller to disclose that he was on the demo list. If he didn't do that, that's ultimately on him. That has nothing to do with us. We're not taking it off the demo list. And basically, 3 weeks later, that house got demoed. So, with that being the case, because it was a situation that was on title before he bought it, he had title insurance obviously when he went through us. So we were able to make him whole with that situation. But again, it doesn't necessarily have to be an error where we missed something on a title search. Now, I'm not going to get into the city of Detroit and what goes on down there a lot, but that's just an instance to show you that the importance of title insurance is because they made an error that ultimately could have cost this man $20,000 for that house that he was going to buy and fix up. So that's what the owner's policy does. It ensures that you don't have to have any issues with that, but even if you do, something comes up that wasn't found, you are going to be made whole and covered. When it comes to paying for the insurance policy, the owner's policy, that is typically going to be handled by the seller, unless it's negotiated that the buyer pays for it. But in most cases, it is the seller's job because they're the ones who are actually selling the house and supposed to sell it without any liens. The other policy that you're going to have is a lender's policy. So this is the type of title insurance where it's required by the financing, if you're going to be using financing to purchase the home. Pretty much every lender in the country is going to request that you have a lender's policy. What that does is that covers them in case there's, again, a title issue that pops up where they want to know, okay, well, we just gave this person $200,000 for this house. This other person had a right or lien on it. They're going to come and basically take it back. We're out of money at that point. But the insurance policy basically goes to cover them, again, to make them whole on their end in the event of something like that happening. Now, the lender's policy, that is going to be the responsibility of you as the buyer because you're the one actually getting the loan. So the seller's responsible for the owner's policy, the buyer's responsible for the lender's policy. Now, a title commitment. Now, what a title commitment is, that's basically what you consider the policy. It's done through extensive research and due diligence as far as, like I said, county court records, deeds, municipalities, just to verify that everything is good with the home. So when you do start the process of purchasing a home, you are going to have your title company issue you a title commitment. And basically it's going to give you a breakdown of all the requirements that you need in order to get what's called a warranty deed. So ultimately, that might say you have to have a payoff for the mortgage. They may say that there's a lien on there from 5 years ago that has to be settled. Anything pertaining to the home as far as title is going to be listed on the title commitment, and everything on there has to be satisfied before you're going to be able to move to closing and get issued a warranty deed. Now, as far as the best way I would say to look at a title commitment is to look at it just as an insurance policy. Just like, what Clem stated earlier, they're going to come out and have to make sure the roof, verify the age and different things like that. Same thing's going to happen with the title insurance policy. We got to verify that everything's in line ultimately. Now, as far as insurance rates go, insurance rates should not vary from title company to title company because the rates are set by the state and they're set by the underwriters. Pretty much every title company uses the same major 4 underwriters across the country. And then obviously the state steps in and then they set the prices. So when it comes to insurance rates, they should not be varying from title company to title company. It's all going to come down to process and obviously service, which, I take heed to as far as that goes. All right, so our next responsibility as a title company is escrow. So does anybody know what an escrow account is? Yes, sir. Yeah. Technically, you're right. So what an escrow account is, it's a non-interest-bearing account where funds are held for a transaction. So ultimately, and it has to be non-interest-bearing because the federal government requires that. When money's being used for a transaction, whoever's holding it cannot make income off of it. It's strictly to be used for that transaction. So basically, when it comes with escrow, you're going to have things like your earnest money deposit. You're going to have things like, closing costs. You're going to have things like your mortgage payoff. Different things as far as funds being transferred during the transaction are going to have to happen, and all the money's going to have to go through an escrow account. So as far as the escrow account, typically there's going to be 2 sets of situations done with the escrow account. You're going to have the incoming transactions, and you're going to have the outgoing transactions. So as far as on the incoming side, again, that's going to be things like your earnest money deposit. That's going to be things like your mortgage company sending us the funds for your mortgage. Also, too, it's going to be any third parties who might have any type of setup with the transaction. Let's say, for instance, like Dom said, you can get a gift from a family member to help with the down payment. Ultimately, that family member would send the money to the title company, and then we'll hold it in an escrow account to be paid out at the end. Now, one thing to keep in mind when it comes to purchasing a home as well, never ever transfer any or do any type of funds outside of escrow. And what I mean by that is, if you have an earnest money deposit, that should not be going to the seller. That needs to go to either the title company or it needs to go to your real estate agent. Never ever give a seller a down payment, or earnest money deposit, or any type of transactions. Ultimately, if you do that, you're at the realm of them potentially running off. And at that point in time, you're potentially going to have to try to hunt them down to get your money, which may cause legal fees that you have to pay and a whole bunch of other things. If you make sure everything goes through the title company, we base all of the funds movements off of contractual obligations. We go by the letter of the law. So again, if you have working with a seller and they say, well, can you give me the earnest money deposit? Say, no, we have to go through the title. And if you're working obviously with an agent, the agent can take your earnest money deposit and keep it with their brokerage as well. That is another option, but it should never, ever, ever go to the seller. Now, as far as on the outgoing portion of it, you are going to have things, like I said, pay off of the seller's mortgage. You might have to pay off your insurance. Like Dom said earlier, with the VA loans especially, you are going to have an escrow account. And the escrow accounts are going to have taxes and insurance that have to be kept up. When it comes to your insurance policy, you have to pay your first year's insurance premium up front. Every single insurance company is going to require that. So ultimately, again, part of escrow is once the funds come in, we will disperse those out to your insurance company to make sure that they get paid, as well as any other third parties as part of the transaction goes. All right, now our final responsibility as a title company is to act as a closing agent. We are a sanctioned notary with the state, and ultimately what we do is we sign all of your documents for your transaction. So that was going to include your loan documents, your deeds, settlement statements, and anything pertaining to the signing of your documentation for when you close on your mortgage. One thing to keep in mind is that a closing is an untimed event. So, with that being said, if you have questions about anything, make sure that you ask them at the closing table. Ultimately, you are responsible for anything that you put your signature on. And if you have a question about something, that at the closing table is ultimately the time where you need to be asking that questions. It's our job as the title company to kind of instruct you and let you know what these documents are about. But if you go over something specific that you have a question about, you have to make sure that you ask questions right then and there, because again, you are responsible for what you put your signature on. Now, in terms of the process goes, like I said, closing is typically going to take place either at the title company or maybe at your brokerage's office. So you really won't see me throughout the process until probably closing. Obviously, I'll be in contact with Carlos throughout the process as far as making sure everything's in line with title. But you typically are not going to see me until the very end of the process. And that's going to be at closing, which again is going to take place either at my office or it will take place at Carlos's office. So ultimately at closing, like I said, you're going to sign all your documents. You're going to be able to get a copy of all the documents that are signed from the closing package. When you do get your closing package, I always say make sure you take it home, put it in a place that's easily accessible and that you're going to remember. Not that you want to actually have to use them, but there may be a situation that comes up where you may need to access those documents for one reason or another. It is very, very important that you put it in a place that you're going to know where it's at, that you have easy access to, and that you're going to be able to, utilize in case something does come up in the future. But again, once you get your package signed, again, you'll have it. At that point in time, Carlos will give you a huge big key that says new homeowner, and you guys will take some pictures. And at that point in time, you are now officially a homeowner. So, but that's title's process as far as the home purchase goes. Did anybody have any questions pertaining to title and or escrow? we're the least sexiest portion of the process, so it doesn't surprise me if anybody doesn't have any questions. So, but yeah, if you do have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I'm always accessible at any time. If you have any questions about title, just the process or anything, you have my contact information. You can reach out to me at any time. So, all right. So next up, after you've closed, obviously it's time to move. So you gotta pack up, get the family ready to head on down to your new home and be able to get situated and settled. So we have coming up here Jerry Simmons and Maurice Carter of Hosanna Junk Removal, who are going to discuss the process of moving after you've closed on your home to get you all situated and settled into your house.
Thank you, Leon. So, Hosanna Junk Removal is one part of what we do. The first part of what we do is our moving services. And usually, by the time we get to the customer, they're super happy and they're also very excited and they're stressed because they have all this stuff, all this life that they built, it has to go to the new spot. So we, at that point, are kind of like superheroes. You know, we have an ongoing thing that my partner Maurice has. His name is Moses, and I'm Moses' brother, Aaron, right? So, and we love to make our customers feel great and comfort them in this stressful time that they have, and that's moving. Because we know that moving is like one of the most top 3 stressful things in life. So getting into moving, my partner Mo here is going to tell you about readiness in the moving process.
All right, readiness is very important. So we like to be very efficient when it comes to our customers. We do charge hourly. So to be very efficient and be mindful of the customer's time, we ask that you do your due diligence as far as being ready. We have come to properties and they're eating Sunday dinner and they're ready for us to move them. You know, so it's like, oh man, it can be pretty stressful for us as well. But what we do is we kind of do a checklist for our customers, which can help them prepare for when we do come, and we can be more efficient and it'll be best for both parties. Best for our backs and best for their pockets, you know. So we ask that we prefer that you box up everything. If not boxes, totes are the best things to have, but if you can do boxes is very good. We ask that you do things like break down your beds and things like that, because breaking down beds or breaking down just anything when it comes to disassembling, it can like bring up the time, you know, bring the hours up on you, so that's more costly. So we ask that you kind of break things down. We offer wrapping, things like that, blankets, so we protect your things as if they're ours. So that can take some time. So we do suggest that you do that just to help the time. But if not, we do that as well. So just being ready when we come in so we can get straight to work, it always helps the customer and it makes them feel better. We never really take breaks. That's how mindful we are of everybody's time. So we want it to be a stress, take the stress off of you as much as we can. And we want the experience to be great. We do get a real good kick out of seeing our customers smile, especially when we come into distress situations. It's like that a lot. Like my partner Jerry said, it's just one of the top 3 stressful things. So when you've gone through all the process that all these guys have put you all through, now you have, okay, we have to move. You know, so now that's a big stress that you have, depending on where you are, what situation you're coming from. And now you're ready to get into your home, you know, in a reasonable time and a reasonable price. So that's where we come in. Efficiency is one of the big things that we do push, just for the comfortability of the customer. And we love what we do. We love helping people and just, you know, taking the stress levels off of them, you know. So we do offer. We also offer delivery services, like one-off, for example, couches, sectionals. So you are moving into a new home, so you may want to, you're going to get a new bed. You may want to get a new bed set. may want to get a new couch, a new sectional, we also do that as well. We do delivery services as well. So you can call us with that, as well as junk removal. My brother Jerry is gonna go into junk removal.
Yeah, but even to piggyback up on the moving services, like if you're going to wrap some of your items, blankets are fantastic for larger items like tables. It's just a way for like customers to actually save money, because the moving experience can be very, very costly, and we try to be somewhat a la carte. And we could do everything for you, but we like to work with the person, the customer, and their particular budget. And everybody's budget is a little bit different. We don't necessarily want to leave no money on the table, but we want to do what's best for that actual particular customer. And we kind of like piece your move together to fit your needs. So the second part of what we do is also needed, because like whenever you move, you have trash left at wherever you just moved from. Like most people, you know, life just accumulates. Like, man, how did I get all this stuff in like the last 15 years? I can't believe it. We hear it all the time. So the second part of our business, which we're leaning more into right now, is Hosanna junk removal. And we're in the Christian church right now. We understand that Hosanna is what the people of Jerusalem were saying when Jesus was entering on the donkey. You know, they were giving him Hosanna as a praise, but also like, save me. And it's basically, we're saving you from the mess that you've created over the last 15, 20, or however many years. So that's what we like to do. So in that place, and this is as simple as it says. We come to your place, you tell us what's going and it's out of there. And most jobs are pretty quick with that. You know, it's a little less stressful than moving, because you just tell us where it's at. You're not necessarily worried about it breaking, you know, because it's junk anyway. You know, and sometimes customers are looking for it to be like just going to the landfill. One thing that we do as well is that we take customers' items that are in good shape, and we might take it to the Goodwill, Salvation Army, and recycle it. So because some things are nice and can be second-handed. So that's pretty much what we do in a nutshell. And I know everybody's move is somewhat different, but it's exciting because like by the time we're done, a lot of times we've set up people's homes to where they could actually go to sleep right after we leave. We put the rug down underneath the bed, maybe set the bed up, you know, got the dressers where they need to be, and like they're ecstatic, you know, and that's what keeps us here. It's not, I know we look like, you know, Hulk Hogan and or your favorite wrestler from back in the day, but our passion isn't in the actual moving of the furniture, of the items, moving your life. It's actually like being helpful to you. You know, it's like we're being of service. You know, we want to be used in a good way, and moving is totally different once you get paid for it. You know, it's one of the most dreadful things for like when you call your friends like, hey, I'm about to move, you know, I got pizza and beer. You're like, oh, I love you, buddy. But when you hire the movers, you know, and it's like, it's not so bad for us because we're getting paid. You know, it's a big difference. We want to make everybody's life easier in that process, and we love to see the smiles at the end of the day. You know, our goal is to treat you like family, and for you to be like, to just be happy in that with your experience with us, because like most of our business is based off of referrals, and we've been able to sustain for about 4 years now, just off of that model, treating people like family. You want to give a couple last words?
Yeah. So, just to piggyback off of just seeing the smiles on people's faces, the feedback that we get, we have been literally called superheroes multiple times. He lifted a piano by himself one day. So we have how many reviews? We have 300 plus reviews on our main lead generator, TaskRabbit. So it's 5-star. Yep, got to throw that in there, 5-star. So we really treat everybody's things as if they're ours. Great customer service. He leads the way with great customer service. He actually helped me pick it up, honestly, when I first started working with him. So just being helpful, just like you guys, just like everybody in that whole process, how you all like to give back and help others. And, you know, with us being men of God, that's just what we want to do. We want to come in, make your situation better than what it was when we got there. And that's what we pride ourselves on. So, yeah, it's a blessing. And yeah, if you need our help, we're here. We're just a phone call away. And we're most definitely here to help. Yeah, and be a part of the process and making everything go smooth as possible. Yep, so that's all I have. Any questions?
Yes, two questions. As far as, do you guys take the money up front or after the job is done? That's my first question. And my second question is, how do I get in contact with you guys?
Okay. So with the first question, yeah, we actually take the money after the job is done. It depends on the job. Bigger jobs, we will take a down deposit. Maybe if we're going out of state. We had a job a couple months back where we went to Indiana to pick up 26-footer, about 300 boxes worth of art. So jobs like that, we may take a down payment just for things pertaining to the job that needs to be done and things. But mainly, like the smaller jobs, we'll do it after we're done with the job. And I'll let Jerry answer the second.
Yeah, for anybody that needs moving services or junk removal services from us, we'll be happy to help. We're, of course, in the Metro Detroit area. We're servicing Metro Detroit. And you can reach out at my personal cell phone number at 248-941-3139. And once again, that's 248-941-3139.
You kind of expanding on that. I know you said you just did a trip to Indiana. What parts of the United States do you guys cover? It's like, how far do you guys go out?
Just local, pretty much. We do mostly local stuff, but we'll go to like neighboring states if the person really needs us. It all really depends on what they need. And we are trying to be upfront and honest because most people are like price conscious. So sometimes we'll put a plan together for a customer that doesn't involve us at the other end, right? So it's places where you go in the market to where you could get movers that'll come out to you after the truck has been driven down to wherever it's going. Say, for instance, we just loaded up a truck for a young couple that moved to Florida, and they're hiring somebody else down in Florida to unload it for them. So, I mean, we'll help navigate stuff like that. We just want to make it make sense because it might not be in somebody's budget for us to go down and pay us all that good money down to Florida or a neighboring state like that.
Okay, so mainly, you said like Indiana, Ohio, Indiana, Midwest, gotcha.
Yeah, yep. What about you in the back, sir?
Me? That was great. I don't have any questions.
Okay. All right, thank you, guys. Looking forward to helping out.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, man.
Great information. Thank you, guys. All right, so that concludes our United States Military Homebuyer Seminar. We want to thank everybody who's here, as well as everybody at home who saw the streaming. Special thanks to all of our speakers today with all the great information that you shared. You're making a huge difference, and we want to thank you for that. Mr. Carlos?
Thank you guys for allowing us to come into this place in Elam Restoration and speak. Thank you guys on the live stream for tuning in. If you're a veteran or any home buyer, take advantage. Zero down payment assistance, concessions, first-time home buyers. There's so many programs right now that's going on, so I would encourage everyone to get into home ownership. I would like to thank my partners, Leon and Dominic, for putting this together. Rodale Endeluz, the pastor of Elam Restoration Ministries. This is my church home, so I appreciate you guys for allowing us to come in here. And tomorrow, we're actually having a church service tomorrow at 10:30, so we definitely would like you guys to come on out and enjoy God with us tomorrow.
Yes, indeed. Definitely thank the pastor and the church for allowing us to host. We definitely thank you very, very much for that. But again, for all you veterans out there, first and foremost, we do want to thank you for your service. Hopefully you took a lot from this seminar today. And ultimately, it will be available on the Faith Valor Growth YouTube channel if you want to watch that at a later time, or you want to pass it on to somebody else who may need some information. And again, if you have any questions about anything pertaining to this process or anything as far as the home purchase process in general, please give us a call, email, reach out at any time. We're always accessible and here to answer any questions that you have at any time. So thank you for your time. It's been great. And you guys have a wonderful day.
Happy Saturday.
Yes.